Good morning, everybody. How are you? It's Chris. I am here again doing a quick video. I know some of you probably saw what I posted up last night, and today I wanted to talk about housing affordability. It keeps coming up. It keeps coming up. In fact, you know, we have a couple big properties listed, and one of them in particular, it's like $7.8 million, and it's a development deal that's going on in Oceanside. And it always astounds me the different reactions that people give to it. Some people wrote on there, you know, not in my backyard, I don't want any development. You have the other side of people saying, well, you know, people should stop worrying less about building these developments and more about fixing housing affordability. And you know what? They're both right. Everybody has their views right now, but here's some of the truths. If you read the post that I put up last night, I think it qualified a lot, you know, and I did a lot of research. And I couldn't find anything that actually talked about the truth with housing affordability and what's going on in California, in my opinion. And that was probably the best place that I could find. You know, you hear real estate agents in the California Association of Realtors talking about housing affordability and why they think it's messed up. And I always find that interesting because real estate agents having any, I mean, they probably have insight, but it's not something that they can really address. When you have the government, the local government talking about how they're going to fix housing affordability, and in their terms, if you do your own research, it really comes down to, now we start getting into the low income and Section 8 homes. Now that stuff's needed as well, but what about just the average Joe? The average Joe that just, you know, wants to buy a house, they got a decent job, nothing too spectacular, just a good fashion job. They want to live anywhere in San Diego, and you start looking at the median home prices here, it's challenging. You go almost anywhere else in the U.S., and I pick up some properties here and there in different states. You're looking at, you know, 100, 150,000, maybe 250,000. You can get a mansion in Texas for 350,000 with a whole bunch of land and probably even a lake on it. But in California, you know, $350,000. If you're in San Diego, especially, because I'm in the San Diego market, and I would say there's different pockets, and I'm sure somebody's going to watch this and say, well, that's not true for where I live. Yeah, but I mean, if you live in Hemet, and you move into a $350,000 home, is there still affordable housing there? Yes, there's still affordable housing in Hemet. But I'm talking about people that actually live in deeper epicenters, you know, San Diego, Carlsbad, Oceanside, Vista, because we're mostly in North County, or even Fallbrook. Fallbrook, the median home price here is not, I would consider, affordable to the average person. It just isn't. So here's some truths. One third of the people in California can actually afford the median home, a home at the median home price. 1/3 of the people can actually afford it. There's a whole lot of people that are migrating here to California. There's a whole lot of people that are already here. And now you're talking about, well, if they can't afford the house, then why is that? Is it because, you know, the prices are just skyrocketing and going out of control and it's another bubble? Well, let's talk about simple stuff. Let's just simplify it a little bit. Almost all of us, when we went to school when we were younger, they talked about supply and demand. Supply and demand. And if there is limited supply, what ends up happening? You know, if there's, you know, and there's a demand for it, the price is going to go up. And that's really where we are. We are so far behind on providing housing in general in California that it's creating a monopoly money situation in the market. You know, do I think, and I've been asked this, do you think these houses are worth, do you think that house is worth $700,000? I've seen a house that's down south here. I was just looking at one. It was $840,000. It was 700 square feet. 700 square feet. And it really wasn't in that good a shape. Do I think that's worth it? No, absolutely not. I know what it costs to actually build a 700, 800 square foot house, and it's not that much by any stretch of the mind. But that's just where the market is right now. So a lot of people are moving from selling their houses, moving from LA or Orange County or the Bay Area, and they're moving into Fallbrook, which is where we specialize, they're moving into Fallbrook because they're able to sell their house for a lot of money, come here, pick up a house anywhere from $600,000 to $800,000 with land, and it's actually like 2,000 square feet, 3,000 square feet, depending on what they find. So to me, it's a major supply issue. There just aren't enough houses. If you read that article, it talked about we need 100,000 houses every year just to catch up to the present demand that's available. So let's talk about the truths of affordability, because I hear it all the time. Here's the truth. Rents are on the rise. They're only going to go up. They're going to continue to go up. I believe last I heard at the last investor meeting, I went to one a couple weeks ago, you're talking about a 16% increase. Most people anywhere else in the country, when they're looking at purchasing a buy and hold property, they're happy with a 3% appreciation every year, and being able to raise those rents again 3%. It's a huge return. But you're talking about in San Diego, Southern California, a 16% increase. So you have people that are renting because they believe they can't afford to buy a house. And even if they could afford to buy a house, for one reason or another, they're afraid to buy a house, right? And they're renting. And they think, well, if I'm renting, I could afford it. But rents are becoming unaffordable. People are even getting squeezed out of renting. So now I don't want to rent anymore. I want to take care of myself. I was paying $2,000. Let's just say, let's say $2,000. I think that's a fair run. I want to pay $2,000 a month. That's what I'm paying on rent. Let's even say $2,400. Raise it a little bit. And I want to buy a house. That's what I can afford. So what does a $2,400 a month get you with a house? Honestly, $2,400 a month is probably going to get you a house that's worth about, let me do the math, give me a second. It's going to get you a house just over $300,000, $350,000 maybe. Can you find a house for $350,000? Yes, it depends on where you look. But will you be in a location? So I work in Oceanside. I work in, let's say Oceanside. I work in Oceanside. I want to find a house for $350,000. Here's the thing. The competition is so great that whenever a house that's anywhere under $400,000, right now in Oceanside, they have less than a month's worth of inventory. From $1 million all the way down. Anything that's $1 million or less, they have less than a month's worth of inventory, which means if it comes on the market, you have a ton of people that are actually bidding on that property. People are getting outbid on that property, and you're just, it's tough. Competition is tough. It's fierce. So where do you end up moving? Wherever you live, it seems like everybody's starting to drive hours away from where they actually work, because that's the only place they can start to find an affordable home. Even right now, if you look at the Temecula and Murrieta market, with the exception of Menifee. Menifee is a unique place. But you talk about Temecula, right? It used to be you could go to Temecula, pick up something a couple $100,000. Right now, it's starting to bump up. You can still find stuff in the 3s, but it's really starting to bump up into the 4s. So even in that area, the housing, why? Because nobody can afford where they are, so they're moving north. So what are the problems? What's actually creating this and causing this? I just told you, there's no housing available, and we need to build houses. But why aren't builders coming out and building houses? Now, what I always found unique is that you have real estate agents having conversations, and you have the government having conversations, and they're having these big meetings, but they're leaving out the number one person that should be in these meetings. Developers, spec builders. I just put up a thing, some buddies of mine, they're spec builders, are building 3 homes, and they're having a really cool little get-together. I'm going to be at that one, and that's in January 28th. So why aren't those people involved? Because let me tell you how it really works. Instead of you eating whatever the news stations are feeding you, which is garbage. What revitalizes communities? When a community is down and it is just falling apart and everything's going wrong, you know what revitalizes communities? Yes, you could say, well, if the community comes together and if they really just talk a lot and figure it out, that's true sometimes. But here's the truth: it's an investor. When investors come into a community and they start investing money into that community and revitalizing it, then the communities change. Now, this also creates, unfortunately, in a lot of areas, it creates gentrification. Now, I know especially if you go up to the Bay Area, gentrification is a huge, hot topic right now, and it should be. But you have to understand that there's opportunities that investors are seeing. They're walking in, they're purchasing these homes in order to make a profit. They're purchasing land to make a profit and develop, and in turn, it revitalizes communities, or it just completely changes it and squeezes people out. That is the basics of gentrification. I might sit down and do another topic because I get people that ask me my thoughts on that all the time. But let's talk about spec builders. So now we're short on all of this housing. Well, you know, if we talk about it a lot, if we come together as a real estate agent community, like real estate agents have anything to do with it, or if we just really talk at the government, maybe, you know, that'll change it. Well, maybe, and let me tell you why. At the end of the day, spec builders and developers, if they aren't building, supply doesn't change. Prices continue to rise, people get squeezed out. If people can't afford to buy a house, they're going to be renting, and if they have to rent, guess what the people that are renting those properties are going to do? They're going to raise the rent prices so they can make more of a profit. Well, that's crooked, Chris. I can't believe they would do that. Well, if you can't afford to buy the house, so you're living in somebody else's house, you're living in somebody else's, you know, property, and then you're going to tell them what they should or shouldn't. So let's talk about that. People are talking about creating, and they're already, you know, doing it. De Blasio and all those cats, not De Blasio, excuse me, out there in New York. Well, we're going to set a price where nobody can raise rents over this price and it's just fixed. Okay, so let me get this right. Free market, that's what we are. We're free market. You know, capitalism is kind of how America was built. I have this pen. You want to borrow this pen. You can't find a pen. You can't afford a pen. You can't get a pen. This is the only pen that's around. This is my pen. You want to borrow it. I'm going to tell you, you know what? I'll let you borrow my pen for $1 a day. Well, that's absurd. I don't want to pay that. Then you don't get a pen. That's how that works. Do you want to use the pen? Yeah. Well, guess what? Now it went to $1.50. It's $1.50 a day. Oh, well, the government should do something about this. Why? This is my pen. I pay for it. It's not your pen. It's not the government's pen. I paid the taxes on this pen. So why should the government now tell me what I can and can't do with my pen? This is my pen. That's pretty much the argument that's going on right now when you talk about rent prices. At the end of the day, if these people want to raise the rents, they're raising the rents. So now you have people that are stuck in this major situation. They can't afford to buy a house, and the reason why they can't afford to buy a house is because there's no houses. When there's no houses, prices go up. If there were hundreds of thousands of houses, I got it right here. We need 100,000 houses to be built every year just to try to catch up. If we're building that many houses to try to catch up, well, guess what will happen to prices? They start coming down because there's more houses available. The market becomes more competitive. It starts stabilizing, right? But then, why aren't the builders coming out? Well, let's talk about it. Every time I turn around, I see it. We have a couple big development deals that are up. One is 90 acres in Bonsall. Oh, well, this is just going to destroy my view. I actually had somebody, like, they really attacked me on social media and said, like, you know, you should feel disgusting that you're selling this piece of land. I lived right behind it and it's going to destroy my view. So let me get this right. It's going to destroy your view. So the person that owns this large chunk of property shouldn't sell it so you can keep your view. I'll tell you what, how about you buy it and then you can keep your view. We'll write it up for you. I'll actually give our seller a discount. The other one that I always hear, and actually I had one lady, she just attacked me and trolled me on almost all my posts. It's because of people like you that are destroying what this place is all about. It's a rural community. Okay, so let me just, and I asked her a very simple, and then she stopped trolling me after this. I asked her a very simple question. I says, do you live here? Well, yes, I do, and I'm very proud to live here. Well, that's exciting. That's wonderful. Did you buy a house here? Yes, I did. I got a nice house, and I got land and a view. Okay, so let me get this right. You're allowed to buy a house here because you can afford it, but nobody else is. Nobody else around here is allowed to live here because, now you're a transplant, right? You weren't born, raised here in Fallbrook. I don't know that many people that were. One of them was on our team. So you weren't born here. You weren't raised here. You moved here from LA. You bought a house, and it's okay for you, but nobody else is allowed to buy a house. Well, that's a bit selfish, isn't it? Doesn't that seem a little messed up? So you have that one side of the house where a lot of people, they don't want these developments to come in because they feel in some way that it's going to destroy their private little sanctity, this little set that they have. And you know what? I get it. I have a nice piece of land here. I get it. I understand it. But at the same time, you know, if you look at what's happening within our market and what's happening in our communities, people I believe they should have a right to live somewhere as well. People should be allowed to have a house. People should be able to live the American dream. The American dream is dying almost in Southern California, especially, but in California, because there's two sides that are just killing it. You have one side, the people that just don't want any development. It's destroying everything. No more development. Same people that have a house that was developed by an investor or a spec builder or developer, right? But it's only good for them. It's not good for anybody else to have a house. But they already have their house to screw everybody else. Then you have the other side. You have the government who says, you know what? We're broke, and we're going to keep charging more and more money, and we're going to, because they need money. And at every opportunity, they're squeezing developers and builders, squeezing them to where they can't afford to build an affordable house. Did you know it's not affordable to build an affordable house? That's why a lot of developers are building luxury homes, because they can't afford to build an affordable house. Okay, so let's get this right. Well, those developers, they're building, and this happens, I heard this just yesterday. Somebody actually on a different post on a different property we're selling. They need to build houses that we can afford that are in the 300,000 range. If you knew what a spec builder and a developer had to pay before they even swing a hammer, if you knew what they had to go through to even get the permits and be allowed, after buying raw land that they had to pay for, and then spending a year or more just to entitle the land and dropping a lot of money just to entitle it, just to make it an APN. And then they got to pay all of the other permits. And then when they start building it, the different things to code. And what always baffles me is I think it's called the 100-year, it needs to stand up for 100 years. Now this is what's wild. There's a house right down the street from our office. It's been there since World War II. It was the original hospital. It had 2 beds in it. It was the original hospital. And it's still standing with the same original windows and the same original door frames. But no. We can't have stuff that's actually affordable. We got to just really crank it up, because you got to understand, they're always making their money, whether it's stuff that's being sold, the GDP total, or just the permits and everything that's out there in general. And so it's not affordable to build an affordable home. The government is not making it affordable for you, the American people. Well, I want an affordable house. It's the developer. It's not their fault. The government is not helping. So now you create a situation where it's not affordable to build an affordable home unless somebody can come in, purchase a whole lot of land at a really, really good price. They take an extended amount of time, and we're talking about millions of dollars. And it used to be the average person, even here at Fallbrook. Fallbrook was really built and developed by average Joes that lived here in this community. Some of them still live here. They picked up some land. They had a little bit of money. They developed it, and they built a spec home and then sold it, made a profit for an affordable price. That's next to impossible now. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying it's next to impossible. So when you start talking about fixing, the prices and the rising prices, when you start talking about affordable rent or rentals even being available, when you start talking about homelessness here in Southern California, you really can't start any of those conversations, in my opinion, until you have the conversation about development and spec builds and bringing more houses and making more houses available, creating opportunity for developers and builders, or even investors in general, to invest into these projects, to start building more homes. Until that happens, it's only going to get worse. Until that happens, the market, when you start looking at some of the markets that are out there that are extremely just fake, they're fake money. You look at the San Francisco market, Silicon Valley, and a few other spots. None of that is real. That's all fake. And in the process, the people are getting squeezed. In the process, the average Joe, they just can't keep up. They aren't being given a chance. Majority of their money is gone. When you talk about inequality, financial inequality, if they're spending well over 50 to 60%. Now this is what's funny. You can't buy a house in California because of the laws. 45% of what you have made. You can't buy if that's all going out. Well, rent doesn't care. People are spending 50, 60, 70% of what they make on rent. 50, 60, 70% on rent. And they can't get ahead. So in my opinion, if more people were aware of what's going on when you talk about the housing situation and how that one piece could fix so many other things, and even if it doesn't fix it, could ease a lot of other things. I believe that should become a topic that everybody should be talking about. That this is a topic that everybody should be talking to. Call your congressman. Start chatting it up with the government. Start dropping stuff on social media. If you really want to jump out there and start making a change, I'm telling you, housing. Just start building housing. Actually, making the opportunity to build housing. I'm not saying we need to ease all the regulations, but some of the regulations are just goofy. I'm not saying we don't pay all the permits, but some of the permits are just goofy. Let's start making it affordable for people to build houses. Whoa, and this is the last one. I'll leave you with this. For some reason, every time I talk to somebody about the same topic, they believe developers should just be developing properties for free. They should be losing money. Let me tell you something. If the government wants to step up and start developing houses that are truly affordable and they can give it to people and they can either lose money or do it at cost, I think it's fantastic. I don't see it ever happening. But you have to understand, the people that are developing and building, they're doing this to make a profit. It's a for-profit. Well, that's just evil. Is it? If it is, then then the American dream of buying an affordable house is in California is dead, for that one very reason, and really the American dream in general. And I hear it all the time. Well, these guys are crooks. They have to make a profit. And honestly, if you really knew what some of these guys are doing on their profit margins, it isn't that much. But people aren't going to work for free. I don't work for free. You don't work for free. If you have a job, you're not working for free. That's the truth. So why would you expect somebody to start developing houses for free? It's never going to happen. Not in Southern California. So get out there, start talking about it. Please give me input on what you think about this video. I know it's a long one. I usually try to keep them short, but this is a pretty hot topic for me. I hope I added some value to you today, and please, reply, put up questions. If there's anything you'd like me to talk about or give my view, hit me up. And if you're in this area and you want to come and check out Kim Steele & Associates, our office is right here in Fallbrook. You can always swing by. All right, everybody, have a good one. We'll talk to you soon.